Hi, guys. This is Rishi. I have another guest with me today, a good friend, Sujata, and she will give you a better introduction about herself. I asked if she was interested in this conversation, and she was very interested. And so I'm so happy to have her. Hi, Sujata. How are you?
Hi, Rishi. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. As I said, this is like a topic totally up my alley in both ways, personally, and also there's a lot of interface of this even in my profession and my work. So, thank you for having me. Uh, Hello, everybody. My name is Sujata Ameya. I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I have my MPhil from NIMHANS, Bangalore, which is the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences. Ever since I graduated from there for more than 30 years now, I have been in private practice as a therapist. And I think over the last 20 years, my practice has moved from being a generalist to a more of a specialist of relationships, marriage and relationships of all shapes, sizes, types, combinations. Um, and it's been an extremely enriching journey just listening to so many couples, warring couples and fighting families coming in with conflict. One of the things that they have taught me is conflict becomes a catalyst for self discovery if it is understood well, handled well, and we learn. I also teach a course on counseling. It's called Inner Horizons, and it has three levels of training from a basic one, which is about self actualization, the second level, which is about art and science of empathic dialogue, and the third one is about art and science of intimate relationships. Apart from that, I also have a book to my credit. It's called When the Beloved Calls. It's a collection of poems and artwork that I had written during an experience that was very interesting that I went through. Currently, actually, for the last 3 or 4 years, in a very focused and systematic way, I have been trying to immersively learn, or rather dedicatedly follow an interest that has been deep in my being from a very young age, which is the effort to try and understand what is this whole thing about? What is life about? Who are we? Where do we come from? What is all this? Who made this? Why are we here? What are we supposed to do? So, all these cosmic questions, spiritual questions, philosophical questions, whatever you want to call it. And I'm doing that in an immersive way by systematically studying the different traditions within the Indian knowledge systems, particularly. While I'm open to learning from all cultures and all religions, this has been a big fascination given the number of philosophies that sit under the umbrella of Indian knowledge systems and the mind boggling diversity amongst all of them. It almost sounds like different kinds of religions, all claiming their origin from the Vedas. So that is a small introduction to myself. Thanks, Rishi.
Thanks so much. That's really great. We spoke a little bit about what I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad you were excited to share this information. What I would be interested to know is while you respond to the questions, how much of it would be acquired knowledge, like you are doing study right now, as for what you just said, and how much of that would be experiential? Because I think most of us wants to know what's your experience been like. Theory to sabko paas kitab hai, they can always go read it out.
Correct.
And it would be really nice that even though you're studying all of these different religions and philosophies, if there's something that experiential, we would love to hear that part. So let me just dive right into it. And the first question I always ask people is, what is their understanding of the concept of God or creator? They have so many different names, right? Vijay gave me a new one. It was like, he calls it the divine. So there are many names for all of this similar concept. But what is your understanding of this concept? Let's start with that.
Okay. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I was going to put that as a disclaimer
Okay.
that there are things that I have experienced which I can share as my truth, and that may not still apply or make sense to anyone else. And there are things that I'm exploring where certain ideas are forming in my head. So I would like to share those as well. And there are some things which others have claimed, and I'm just saying, okay, maybe, perhaps. So I'm open, but I'm not fully bought over. So that's where things are right. So coming to this understanding of God, here's what I have come to conclude for now. So conclude is for now. That's the underlying part. So I think historically, anthroposophically, if you see, God is probably an idea that we all needed to make sense of what's going on. So, from that perspective, it is something out there, something higher, something that is more powerful than us, something that can make things happen which we can't make happen, and something which probably has the ability to grant us the things that we want or need. So, that omnipresence, omniscience, those attributes are projected onto God. But over the years, as I've come to understand through my own inquiry, I find it easier to relate to God as something of myself, the highest possibility of what I can perhaps be, if I'm able to really be still and not get covered or colored by all other thoughts and ideas and conditionings and turns of my mind. So, if I can simply mute the mind entirely, then what remains of my awareness, what remains is probably a sense of what God is. It is an inner energy, inner power, inner state, inner reality that is there in all of us, but it's all covered with all our personality, our aims, our goals, our desires, etc. So that's how I've come to understand it. Now, have I accessed it? I can't say, I'm not sure. But I know for sure one thing, that when I am in a very calm and still and very peaceful state of mind, my way of seeing things is far less distorted than it is at other times. And my sense of feeling joyful and empowered is very high. So maybe that is what it is. So I'm not sure.
Lovely. Very, very nice explanation. And thank you for sharing that. It's lovely. Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
People say there is a soul that is eternal and that the body is just for a given period of time. So we give ourselves names Rishi or Sujata. That is just the label for that particular body for that particular duration. What is your concept of the soul? Does it exist? Is it there? Are we eternal? How do you explain the concept of the soul?
Okay. So thanks for asking this question because this was one big driver for me. So it was triggered by certain childhood questioning of why is someone like this and why is someone different, right? So why is someone beautiful? Why is someone not considered beautiful? Why is someone smart? Why is someone not able to study well? Why is someone poor? Why is someone rich? Why is someone falling sick? Why does somebody have good health? So the variability of the human experience, I wanted to get to the bottom of. So that's always been a inquiry. Now, if you just look at the entire Eastern wisdom traditions, almost all of them speak about the eternity of the soul. And the idea of a soul is largely an Eastern contribution to the study of the human life and the divine situation in the cosmos. So, what happened was professionally also, I wanted to explore this. And to my good luck, I think it's synchronicity that when my inquiry became really intense is when I was introduced to the book by Dr. Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many Masters. And that just sent me on a spin. It's okay. This is not coming from some esoteric Rishi, Muni, ashram, or some Tao Zen master who's saying whatever he wants. This is a clinical, Western trained, objective doctor sitting in some place in the US talking about this. So I think that really got it going for me. And then I explored for training programs where one could do that, how to help people get into that. I'm also trained in past life regression therapy. I trained with Dr. Brian Weiss and also a couple of other people who are unfortunately not as famous as him, but have amazing depth of scholarship in the whole idea and how they have integrated the ancient spiritual wisdom from the Eastern traditions into their clinical understanding and practice of the system. So, in order to undergo the training, you also need to undergo your own regression. which I did, which I had the opportunity to get regressed by other participants and some other practitioners at the time. I can claim access to my past lives a few times. And it's interesting to me that what your mind or what your psyche accesses at that time when you're seeking this ends up being so relevant to the quest you are on at that time. So, one of the ways to understand this, it is possible that our awareness outlasts and pre exists our existence on the earth in this body, as you said. So, that has a sense of eternal existence. And on that timeline of awareness, let's say that's like a thread. Yeah. There are all these beads of lifetimes, right? It's like a garden, or maybe it's an open-ended garden. It's not been tied together because you just keep coming back with different kinds of experiences. So what I realized is that the inquiry that you have ends up accessing for you the lifetimes that are relevant to helping you understand how and why this is happening at this time. So it's in that study of past life regression therapy, I understood different concepts of the gender neutrality of soul incarnations, this idea of soul groups incarnating together, the idea of karmic settlement that creates the situations required for a soul to incarnate in a certain way, in a certain condition. How those karmic complexes also determine the form and structure of your body and bones and illness and health and life situations and parents and financial situations, how complex that whole thing is and how naturally and spontaneously it just seems to happen. So it was a very fascinating time of study for me. And I also understood that from a purely clinical treatment perspective, if there are situations which are not getting resolved by all the standard psychotherapeutic techniques, this approach in one go, in one sitting, can clean up a lot, can really release a lot, can help people really understand what actually is going through. Now, there's also a flip side to it. Even as we speak, every week, I receive 5 or 6 calls saying, I want past life regression. I want to know who I'm in a different life. Now, that's not a good enough reason for attempting something like this. I would take it the other way around, where I will request them that can I first understand what you're struggling with? And if that is something that can be sorted out within this lifetime context, let's approach it that way. This is only for refractory clinical conditions that people come with, where this becomes a treatment of choice. So, to answer your question, it's a very long answer I gave. I would say that I believe in the idea of a soul and soul migration and soul incarnation. And it so far in my study, that's the only theory that gives me the way to understand individual variations, situational variations, and what each person does. So that is the reason I feel okay, this is a good explanation for now until some better one comes along. I'm going
Whatever you said resonates with me at so many levels because of my own experiences with my therapist, with my life coach. And the great thing about my coach is that I don't have to do the past life regression. She's like the bro. So she asks my permission. And again, like you said, we only go there when we find out what's the issue here. And if it is connected with some past life, then we go there and then understand that,
right.
all that, transmute that, fix that and everything. And then I see results now. I mean, the has it's kind of getting solved. How is that possible? I didn't do anything. It's just that we went there, understood the situation, and she connects with the creator and she says, "Hey, creator, would you like to create a perspective of how to view this and stuff like that?" And all I have to say is yes. Then the magic happens. So for me, the results are fabulous. And so I'm able to connect with everything that you've said. So you actually touched upon not just the soul, but also a little bit of karma and therefore reincarnation, which were my following questions on karma, reincarnation, and death, and things like that. So I'd like to maybe further understand from your experiences, and you've experimented with these, and you've actually, my understanding is that you've actually helped people with past life regression, and in your therapy, you actually help them. And as you said, when there's a problem that we are working on this life requires to go back and see or do a past life regression, and they've got results. So let's dive into, you know, what is it that is it karma? Is it is something else? What what is it that they're having a problem with, which they need to understand? And it is karmic reasons. How do you go about addressing it? Can we talk about karma and how does that work? It's from past life.
Right.
So
Right. 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 So, a couple of things I want to just touch upon first, and then I'll come to answering your question. So, one is from what you're describing, Rishi, it sounds like the person who's coaching you is probably a psychic reader or a psychic healer. Who these are people who seem to be gifted in being able to have the clairvoyance to see others' past lives and perhaps even their own past lives. I don't know, which relates to what issue they are dealing with at this time. So I think that's a different kind of a gift, actually. My work, ah, my work, I don't know if I can do that, and I don't claim that ability also. My work is where, of course, we take permission from the client, and we go through a process which help them still their conscious mind enough to allow us to access the other parts of their awareness, which then helps them see what they are willing to see as past lives. But the thing is, the experience, it is an experiential thing. It is not some intellectual or a conceptual or a visual idea. It's if they feel it, they can see it. So there's no question. They come back very, very convinced about what they saw, what happened. More than that, I think they come back with a release and a restoration. And they come back with the understanding of, oh, that's what is happening. So that gives them the whole release of, that crunched energy that they're holding on to, and a restoration of ownership or accountability or responsibility about what had transpired. So if you've noticed, even if you don't talk about past lives for a moment, in any situation, as long as you're feeling this was done to me, you remain in the victim mode and feeling powerless. The minute you take ownership of how did I contribute to enabling the situation to happen, you take back agency and you immediately feel empowered, right? So that same healing principle applies both in normal psychotherapy and past life.
right.
It is about saying things for what has happened and taking ownership about, okay, so now what is it I can do going forward, right? So now karma. Karma, I think the way it is spoken about or understood normally is like, okay, like a cause and effect. So therefore, punishment and reward. I don't necessarily say that. Of course, pleasant things will feel like a reward. Unpleasant things will feel like a punishment. That is
Right.
just the mind's way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
But I don't believe there is somebody sitting up there in the sky with a long beard, keeping a register and allocating things to us. I don't think it's that ridiculous. Okay. How I see karma is that, see, ultimately, if you break down everything, even from the quantum physics perspective, everything is about energy, right? So, what you have thought and what you have then proceeded to do is a certain manipulation of energy that you have managed to do. Now, that will have certain consequences. And those consequences can cut across the blips of lifetime, the beads that I was talking about of lifetimes that we go through. So what you do right now, some of it, if it's a seed that grows fast, you will see it within the next 3 months, 3 years, 30 years, within this span, this lifetime. if some of the karmas, if the seed of it is one of those very slow growing things, like those large trees, they take a long time to grow and a longer time to bear fruits. If it's like of that nature, it will occur much later. After you've lost this body, you've lost the idea, identity of whatever you have done at this time. So for me, it helps me jump across physicality of time and space and helps me understand how energy actually outlasts everything. Energy is there. You can neither make it nor break it. You can't create, you can't do anything. You can't add to it, you can't subtract it. It will only be transmuted or changed. That's all. So the eternal nature of that which exists as energy in this space of this interaction between time and space, right? That energy, it's very easy to understand when you see it. So karma to me is when I have manipulated the energy in the form of thoughts within my own mind, in the form of intentions, in this form of speech and actions that I have done unto myself, unto the others, unto the environment, the resultant consequences of that manipulation of energy is something that will accrue to me, and I will be needing to undo those consequences, both present and unpleasant. So if I'm enjoying great health and good amount of money and I'm having a very comfortable life at this time, I must have done something then which has yielded these consequences. So to be aware, to be grateful, and to consciously partake of that is also, a responsibility that we have. And then to equally acknowledge, accept, and then consciously work through the difficult things that we are going is also a part of, this journey of the soul. So for me, therefore, life itself being a journey of learning, and then the soul also journey through lifetimes in order to evolve. These two concepts go very closely hand in. So I hope that answers the question you're asking.
Very, very nice answer. And I could relate to a lot of those because of my own experiences with my kind of with God. Great. So this also touches upon death, unless you wanted to add something more on death. Because death is nothing. See, you know, I went through a heart transplant operation in 2019. And people are, ask me, are you worried and all this? But see, if I die on the operation table, done, right?
Yeah.
I'm out of the loop. It's all gone. So I'm never afraid of death.
Yeah.
Right? I may not want to die, but I'm not afraid of it. I may
Yeah.
want to experience this life while I'm here.
Yeah.
But I'm always afraid of suffering, right? I'm
Yes.
afraid of,
Yes.
I'm worried about, like, what if something goes wrong and I'm a vegetable and I have to be taken care of for however many years? Oh my God, that I don't want.
Yeah.
That I don't want pain, suffering. That is something I still have to
Yes.
work on. And but I'm never afraid of the concept of death because for me, if my understanding with these experiences is like, oh, death is just like one of those revolving doors. You go and then you're coming back in another body. That's the body, just changing clothes and coming.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
Would you like to talk about that, or you feel leaving your current explanation of these is kept?
Yeah. So I can add a little bit to it, but with the disclaimer that it's not a lived experience.
Yeah, very good.
So it is something I've learned and understood, right? So, what I'd like to bring to our discussion, Rishi, is the idea of the Bardo. It's a Tibetan word and it refers to the space after death but before life. It's almost a state of review. And in almost all, again, Eastern traditions, there is a reference to this thing with different names. I'm not able to recall them now. Where, this soul is supposed to be guided by the different ascended masters and teachers and gurus to understand what it went for in the previous life, to what extent those goals were achieved. And these are spiritual evolutionary goals of moving from consciousness, which is mostly covering our essence, which is our godhood, as I spoke earlier, to, cleaning up to such an extent that that alone is shining and all the rest of this is fallen off or removed, right? So in that journey, to what extent have you acquired or accomplished the goals that you had? What are the reasons you could not or did not? What would you like to do now as a corrective action? And what new goals would you like to take on? Right. So, this whole discussion of crafting the or scripting the kind of life that you will now have in the next incarnation is done. And I do believe this is probably what happens because I don't believe in one character sitting there allocating things randomly to all of us. I think we do have a great amount of choice in how we are traveling, what pace we are traveling, what issues we are ready to deal with, and how we do it. Even in the way we repay karma, if you want to understand it from that perspective, I think even there we have a choice of how we do it. And speaking about this choice, this free will, this also something I learned from conversations with a few people in this field. It was very interesting that from the Indian perspective, the idea of free will is relative. So for me, that was very mind bending actually, because earlier I used to think of it as free will versus destiny. But again, as I kept working and teaching my course, etc., I realized it has to be free will and destiny. It actually just came to me as an insight. It's like if I raised my leg to take my next step, to the extent that my other foot is on the ground, I have only that much limited free. I can't do much more than what that allows me to do.
Absolutely.
And it's only after I place this foot on the ground, which now becomes the destiny, I have the free will of the other foot to come for. So in that way, they go hand in hand. It's not one with the other.
Lovely.
It's day and night. Yeah. So this just came, so one of the things that my USP in my courses is that the every concept is taught through a experiential activity where it is your body is you we are not discussing or doing PPTs. We are taking different postures, making different movements, working with each other in certain ways where this thing just clicks for you. So I think I was trying to say, how do I convey this? How do I teach this? And it just came. And then he realized, as I said, I was speaking to some people, and this gentleman, he gave me a very interesting perspective. He said, see, the thumb can think I have all the freedom. I can rotate, revolve, bend, stand up. I can do all that. But the thumb has to have the humility to understand that it is attached to the rest of the other four fingers and the wrist. So its freedom is relative to the wrist. And the freedom of the wrist is relative to the elbow to the shoulder to the body to its circumstances. So it's all relative.
Nice.
But it doesn't change the fact that you still have this. You can still do as much as you can do. And this is where karma is both created and destroyed.
Right.
So you do unconscious movements, you create unconscious karma. You do conscious movement, then you create conscious, right? So the difference between negativity and positivity is ultimately that if you're aware and conscious and then you act, how will you ever do anything that is bad, dangerous, or negative? And if you're not conscious, you're reacting, then what are the chances that you'll do anything useful, helpful, or positive? Right? So it's all coming back to that thing of awareness, which is the deep light within all of us, which is God. For me, that is God. And that's hidden. That's hidden inside all my mess, the mess of my personality. And therefore, finding ways and practices that help me to clean up the mess daily, thoda, little, is the spiritual practice or is the sadhana that one
Right.
needs to do.
Right. Lovely. Lovely. Beautiful. Very nice analogy to further understand this concept. I really love that you have both free will and destiny. Thank you so much for that. That was lovely. And
Thank you.
before I switch from, you know, karma and death to the next question, I want to just further go deeper on this one, which is your work a large portion of it was relationships,
Mm.
right? Like married or unmarried, whatever.
Right.
But one of the things my therapist told me was that about 90% of marriages are past life karmic baggage settlement journeys. Um, Maybe 5-10% might be actually two people getting together and want to co-create something together. What is your experience on that, and what would you like to do that? It's on the fact that you've done what, more than
This is,
1,000 couples,
I know.
maybe more.
Yes, yes, yes. I think it's probably now coming close to, I don't know, 16,000 maybe.
One.
So, yeah. So it's an interesting question, and I would absolutely agree with your coach there. In fact, I would go to the extent of saying that all relationships, I mean, even your relationship with the guy who brings you a post, to the guy who brings you the milk packet every morning, to the watchman that your community has, to the auto guy who takes you to the station, doesn't matter. All relationships are karmic. So, because see, when we have manipulated this energy and there is a account that we have debited, credited, whatever. Now, what is the currency? The currency of, undoing all of that is through people. It is through relationship, right? So when we say, oh, that was a very bad situation, the situation has people who deliver those things to you, right? Good or bad. So all relationships are karmic. That's my very strong fundamental belief. And marriages has to do with extreme amounts of energetic exchange that is sitting or pending between two. So large, extreme and large, both, right? So good marriages, bad marriages, reasonable marriages, working marriages, doesn't matter what it is. They have to do with very intense involvements between two souls, with the understanding that not only we will balance out our karmic account, but we'll also enable each other to grow. Because see, I used to say this even 20 years ago when I had no idea about all this, parapsychological stuff. See, in all other relationships, even though they are karmic, only certain facets of you comes out and play, right? So as to a friend, you can be a friend. To your sister, you can be a sibling, sister or brother. To your neighbor, you can be a nice neighbor, a citizen, a traveler, a this, a that. You can have hundreds of roles that you deliver, all relationships, but those are only different facets. It's only in the intimate relationship, which is either a live-in or a marriage, where that some other deeper part of you shows. That part of you nobody will have access to. That is why when people say, "Oh, but he's such a nice man. How can you have problems with him?" I don't. I think that's a very judgmental thing to say because you don't know that person as a husband, or you don't know that woman as a wife or as a partner, right? So that core of you, that essential identity of you as a person, which is actually very deeply entangled with the gendered identity. That is, how do I see myself as a woman? How do I see myself as a man? What are the social messages that have gone into conditioning me into who I should be, what I should expect? So many things come to it. And also the relational gifts and relational woundings from my child. So all the good stuff that I would have got from my parents is also sitting in that identity. All my wounds which have not been addressed, which have not been healed, they are also sitting. In fact, today I would go to the extent of saying that marriage is an opportunity in adulthood to heal the wounds that we receive in child. Inevitably, they will play out. So, if a single person is sitting in front of me and telling me about their partner or their spouse, I immediately get to know two things. One is their personality right now. What are their, gaps and what do you know? I don't know what to say, which are clicking into this other person that they're having trouble. And the second thing that I get to know from what they're saying is what's the kind of parenting they would have received. in order to create this particular combination or configuration of a personality, right? So one can say this person is terrible, negative, whatever, but one can also see it as no other relationship will show you the kind of mirror that this person will show you. So it's a tremendous opportunity for self discovery, personal growth, and actually mutual support in this journey. Of course, there are conditions. The most obvious one being both persons should think of it that they both should be thinking of it that way and working towards it that way. Then it becomes a very productive and joyful and difficult, but sustainable kind of a relationship or partnership. And then also there are some situations where one partner, times rarely both partners, are just too disturbed, mentally have some, very difficult psychiatric condition, or they are in some other state of disturbance where this thing will not be possible. Like take alcohol, for example, or some very severe kind of schizophrenia or a bipolar disorder, etc. Then
Well,
it's very difficult to do this in the way of helping each other grow. However, even there are some people who are able to see it as this is the role or this is the purpose of why I was brought into the life of this person. So I'm going to continue to serve, I'm going to continue to care for or, give the care that this person requires. So different ways of resolving an issue exist. And I feel marriage or intimate relationship is one extraordinary opportunity.
wow. No, that's great. And whatever you said has made me look at what I need to do still further. So next session with my therapist, I'm going to bring it up.
Okay.
Other opportunities am I missing out, which I should use while I'm still alive with my spouse? That's great, fabulous. Very much. Okay, I'd like to switch gears. Thank you for all of this. I mean, you can go on forever. I mean, there's never an end to these concepts.
I know.
Do plan to have like this series is called the Karmic Part. I I do plan to have other series which I would love to invite you again with different questions, but in connection with this. Um, so the thing I want to talk about now is the last part of my question. There are a couple more questions up there. Is you know is there like a generic soul purpose for every soul, or and then there is also the specific purpose for this life? You've come here as a soul, so there is one ultimate goal and one immediate goal. Is there something like that? Can you talk about that? What can you share about it?
So I think briefly I've said this in earlier also in our conversation that I think broadly for all souls, the purpose of incarnation is for evolution, to reach closer and closer to that inner divinity that we all have effectively. And since it's such a long journey, you can't carry the entire baggage. Different lifetimes are planned out where certain portions of the learning that you require and the situations which will enable that learning to the best of your ability are also scripted and crafted. So each lifetime is a snippet or a small portion of what you can learn and what you can also undo. What uh, the word they use in Vedic terminology is runanubandha, the karmic dues that you have with somebody. How do you settle those and to what extent? So I've heard things like this, and maybe it's true. I can't say. They say that some of us get greedy in saying, no, 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 I want to remit everything. I want to just finish it off. So you come with a whole load of issues. And some people say, no, I can't take so much. I'm going to take small portions. Let me just do it easy and nice, right? So maybe that is true. I don't know, but yeah, it is something that, as I said, there is a whole scripting of the next life that happens in the Bardo state before you reincarnate. So that option exists. Yes.
Wow, wow, wow. It's so good. Having these talks really are also giving me clarity as as I have to do my own work. But thank you so much for that response. It's very nice. I think there's no rush, there's no shortage of lifetime that you can come back. So why take the entire burden in one shot?
Exactly. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah,
Good,
that's what.
good.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is awesome. I have just a couple of things which I want to ask you before I let you go. I think for those people who are watching this, right, and they are
Mm.
like maybe inspired by the or just the way you are explaining things, they feel they can relate to somebody like you. What's the best way they can reach out to you, maybe for a one-to-one session or things like that? How do they reach out?
Right. So there are two simple ways. One is email, and I'll be happy to send it across. You can add it to the link or the comments. And my phone number, if they can reach out on WhatsApp,
Right.
maybe with a reference to your video, and or not, it doesn't matter. I will take it forward. There.
Fantastic. I'm
Yeah.
great. So that's great. I'll put that in the description of the video. And what about any message you want to leave with the audience before you go?
Okay. So you had sent this question, and I was thinking, okay, what do I want to say? And given the kind of mind I have, I was thinking of so many different things. Then, if you bring it all down to a basic core, it boils down to, it is actually unfolding just the way it was meant to unfold, just the way you decided, just the way it was planned. This is exactly how it's supposed to happen. And all you have to do is allow. You don't have to work hard. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to push it in a certain way. Nor do you have to resist and fight and, overcome. No, we are not in a battle. We are not in a war. It's not about winning over your life. No, it's about going with your life. So if you can lean into whatever's happening, if you can take that posture of literally leaning back into your life as opposed to racing at it or fighting with it or defending yourself against it, I think the whole game changes. The experience of the everyday life changes. And then also if you can take the perspective of what can I do as I exist, as I breathe today. Is it possible that through me someone's day can, get a little better? A small smile, a small gesture, something very, very tiny. That seems to go such a long way. Like, you're at the mall and you're opening the door for somebody, or you're at a restaurant and you're proactively offering the chair to them, saying, yeah, please take it. Or just those tiny acts of kindness and generosity. They go such a long way, not only in making others happy, somehow it just makes you so happy. So I'm like, well, it's very simple. There's nothing to fight, nothing to plan, nothing to discuss, nothing to break your head over. It's going just the way it's supposed to go. Go with it and be nice along the way. That's my message.
Wow. Wow. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Uh,
It's very nice.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Rishi. This was lovely. Like I said, this is like totally what I love because this is what I do, what I think, what I breathe, what I eat. This is my livelihood. So, so happy that you thought of calling me. And I have tremendous regard for the journey you've been on. And it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be. Thank you so much.